What is going on, everybody? The patch notes for 1.03 is finally here. We have so many changes to talk about, so many buffs, so many nerfs, some new additions coming to the game. So yeah, the game is finally free from Laboratory Maniac. So let's talk about it. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Roxora, and here we do all things magic and magic spellslingers. Got the patch note. Patch is live currently. Yeah. But before we do any kind of new decks or anything like that, I wanted to run through the changes here. Before we get into it, if you are enjoying the content, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All of that good stuff really helps me out a lot and lets me know to keep bringing you this kind of content more. All right, let's waste no time. Everyone's really excited for this. The game has been super bad. For context, Laboratory Maniac and Gutfire Devil just completely dominating the ladder, kind of ruining the play experience. They even added a casual queue for a while that kind of was effective for a little bit, and then people kind of just stopped playing. That also kind of the rank ladder system was kind of weird. They have some fixes to that here, I think. So yeah, but we knew this was coming. Actually, we have a new planeswalker in Sarah. Very exciting. Sorin was added, and Sorin has felt pretty good, but balanced. There's actually no changes to Sorin in this current patch, I'll tell you that. So that's a really good sign, right? That they've kind of gotten a hold onto how to release the planeswalkers safely. So we've got Sarah here, a white planeswalker, 21 health. That might seem low, but wait for the ability. You have Ascension at the start of your turn. You heal yourself for 1 and all friendly creatures for 1. So immediately right there, it's a little different than I expected, but it seems like a fine ability. You're attacking your creatures in, they're taking damage, you're getting healed, and meanwhile, you're also just healing 1 every turn. So, really, people have been like, oh, so bad against Chandra, but actually, if you're gaining 1 every turn, assuming you're able to stabilize, this will provide you with a really good amount of health. Divinity here is really interesting, where you can run any number of white multicolored cards. So you can't run any non-white cards, right? You have to run white cards, but you can run any number of white X cards, right? White and X cards, right? So you can run any number of white-black cards, blue-white cards, blue-green cards, etc. And then we have the signature cards here. I'm going to go over these real quick. So we've got the 3 of them up here, and then these are cards that are generated from the shrine here. So Shrine of Valor, format artifact with 2 charges, activate, summon a knight, and then the next charge summons a Sarah Angel. So first you summon a 2/3 for 2. And then you summon a Sarah Angel, classic magic card, which is a 5 and a 4/4 with flying. So this to me actually seems kind of weak, because it's kind of a very slow, like, yes, you get a 4/4 flying at the end and a 2/3, so you kind of get 6/7 worth of power for 4 mana. So it's kind of nice, and the 2/3 immediately can kind of buy you some time. It's probably all right, but I'm not sure if you're going to be running 2. This might just be a one-of kind of card. There's a Sarah Judgment here, which gives an enemy creature can't attack. We've seen this, and there's the 4 mana stun spell that stuns a creature for the rest of the game. So this is kind of that, but a little cheaper, but still lets the creature block. But that might be pretty good if you have things like Sarah Angel and things that fly, right? So, you give a large ground creature flying, like Liliana's Goliath or whatever it is, that thing can't attack anymore, but you can just fly, but it can still block, but you just fly over it with something like a Sarah Angel. So that's like a known kind of thing in Magic that's been known to do. So that's pretty interesting. And then we have a cool kind of debut cantrip card in Sarah's Disciple. 2 mana 2/2 debut, add a random angel to your hand. Nice to see some good angel support. We've got Geist of Saint Traft in the game, so that might be a pretty cool card to play with that. We've got some other angel synergy cards in the game already, so pretty cool. So sorry, before we go on to the balance changes, first of all, what do I think of Sarah in terms of how strong and what kind of deck. I have no idea. I know this is not the analysis you come here for, but I think the deck building restriction is pretty interesting. I think it'll lead to some potentially interesting combinations at some point once people figure out what's good. Yeah, I think the healing your creature's part is really the thing that you should be considering. People have kind of thought about using stuff like unicorn and healing stuff like that. Not really what I'm looking at, and but yeah, I think just kind of playing good white cards or playing good white creatures and using the ability in your spells to facilitate that is probably the way to go. That's my guess. It seems like some kind of mid-range deck that is using the ability and it's the white cards to win through combat and an attrition, right? That you're attacking and your opponent's blocking, but your stuff's getting healed, and so your stuff is going to outlive theirs. All right, anyways, let's look at what we are really here for in the balance changes. So some weird kind of small changes and some larger changes here in the Planeswalker changes. So Liliana going from 23 health to 24 health. Not a really big change. They mentioned that Liliana is a good choice for new players. I agree with that. But it's underwhelming at the higher levels. Giving her one more health to survive the aggro matchups. I think this is kind of a really nothing buff. I don't think it'll change anything about Liliana. I don't think the one health really impacts her ability to play the game. I think the big issue with her against aggro is that, again, a lot of her creatures, once they die once, can't block. The health that they get back is kind of nice, but I don't see how this changes Liliana's position in the meta. Gideon was one of the strongest non-Teferi decks around, just getting to turbo out Gideon and attack super fast and kill the opponent. Not skipping leg day, as they say. Bringing it down just a little bit. There's also Gideon's Protection, which is a card that wasn't really seeing play because, again, Gideon was kind of big enough, so they're taking it down a notch so that people are incentivized to play this and also, again, just make it weaker. And I really like this change. I think this makes a lot of sense. Here is an interesting change that they made. So they mentioned that there were some bugs going on with Animal Arrow. I have never encountered any of these. I don't remember what they were. I'd never heard any of this, but that's what they say, and that's great that they're taking care of that. They also mentioned that they were looking at reevaluating the design of the card, and mentioned that they wanted the play pattern to be using the button on 1. That makes sense. And so they moved this card to 2 mana. I think that's a really interesting game design wise, that they're kind of just forcing the player to do that. But then they also changed kind of how the card functions. So before, you used to just draw a creature from your deck and then give it a upgrade of your choice, like you draft an upgrade for it, and now it is essentially reversed, where you draft a creature, so you get a choice of 3 creatures from your deck, you draw it, and then you give it a random upgrade that you don't get to choose. So I think this is better in the sense that you get if you want the creature, and the creature is just good, which is kind of how Vivian's played normally, but worse in the sense that you don't get to choose the upgrade that you get. That was kind of the one interesting point where the artifact and what was and this were the ways to kind of choose what types of upgrades you got. The upgrade you get off the ability is random. So yeah, I don't know where this card will end up. I'd be really interested to see if people still play it. The 1 to 2 mana is unfortunate, but the card might be particularly stronger at finding key creatures, so if that's the case, it might be pretty good. There's a really small change. They changed the cost of Magnum Opus from 3 to 4, but didn't change the cost of the Monstrosity, so they changed the cost of Monstrosity. Great, cool. Here is a change that I am finding very annoying. So they are changing both of the cards that reduce the cost of the trap in your hand from reducing it all the way to 0 to reducing it by 2. So now Teferi's Acolyte now just reduces the next trap that you arm by 2. Yeah, so they said like all the good traps that you play are three mana. So now you have to, in order to do that, you have to play this and have a mana available. I think this is a super huge nerf to Teferi. I don't think it kills the deck, but again, one of the issues with Teferi is playing against aggressive decks, and playing a Teferi's Acolyte and using something like an Immolating Glare was a great defensive play, and now that's just gone on turn 3. Like, yes, you can still do it on turn 4, but otherwise it's dead. And they're doing the same thing for Hatchet Plan, which is the other card that does that. And that also makes Hatchet Plan so much worse. I'm not even sure if Teferi plays Hatchet Plan anymore. I don't know. Yeah. I'm a little upset at this because I really enjoyed Teferi. I was really looking forward to playing Teferi again. I'm sure that we'll probably still play this, but I'm not sure how strong Teferi will be with this kind of nerf. This feels pretty substantial. All right, we've got a lovely reversion, and I love seeing this because it shows that they are actively taking a look at where the game is at and taking a look at all the planeswalkers and seeing the effects of their changes. So Extract Fear was nerfed to be 2 mana because they thought that card was too strong in Ashiok. Now they bring it back to 1 mana. They say it was necessary at the time. Now, they're giving it back to give it back some power. I love this. Love seeing this. Yeah, excited to play Ashiok again. All right. This is a really interesting change as well. Vraska's Grub going from 1 mana to 2 mana, but receiving an additional power and toughness. The ability, they mentioned the ability to go up 1 mana was really powerful in Vraska, right? So like speeding up the deck too much and doing that kind of stuff. You play the artifact on turn 1, you play this again, on the next turn, and all of a sudden you have 4 mana at your disposal. That's really strong. So slowing that down even just by a turn makes it really nice. I guess you can still do this on turn 2. You can still do that, but it makes it only gives you 2 mana at your disposal as opposed to 3 mana, or whatever it is, whatever the number is, you know what I mean. So yeah, really like this change, and I like that they also kind of buffed the other aspect of the card. I'm also confused because I thought Grub was a 2 mana 2/2. This might be a typo here. But that's whatever. All right, now for the thing that we came here to see: Laboratory Maniac getting what is a nerf. Like, you can call it a change all you want. This is a nerf. Still retaining the same stats and everything, but the ability is now being changed to, if this was played on a previous turn and your deck is empty, you win the game, and the miracle text is being changed to add a random artifact to your deck. Why an artifact and not a spell? I don't know. Kind of weird. But yeah, adding, that part was always really strange to me. So yes, they mention a key part of blue decks that could win on turn 6 or 7 very consistently. So we like the possibility for win cons for control decks, just having an empty deck. But this was quicker than intended, yada yada. The best way was to hold it up until your deck was empty. I mean, this is again as we anticipated. So now they are requiring it to be played first, giving your opponent the opportunity to remove it. Otherwise, the only way that they could win was to kill you before your deck was empty. And because there's no real way to get Laboratory Maniac out of the hand once it's there. So this is not the only change, right, that they're making to Laboratory Maniac. They're also nerfing some other cards, as they mentioned. I have been talking about this with some of the other players and some of the other content creators. I knew this was going to happen. I knew, obviously, that they were going to nerf Laboratory Maniac, but it was going to be one of either two scenarios. It was either going to be they, make some kind of small change to the stats or the cost or the something about the card that is really minor and doesn't change, its impact on the game at all. Or they completely alter the identity of the card and the ability to the point where it is no longer the original card and it is essentially dead. Now, I'm using hyperbole there. Some people have tried to argue that it's not dead, it's just a whole lot weaker. Again, that remains to be seen. Again, we haven't played at all. Nobody has really, experimented super in depth with this. But my assessment is Laboratory Maniac is essentially gone. It is no longer going to be a really viable thing. Playing it out first and then waiting a whole turn, hoping your opponent doesn't kill it. Also, you're hoping your opponent doesn't kill you. It slows down the whole thing by a turn. All of these things, lead to the fact that this is no longer going to be a consistent strategy. Now, in my discussion with these people, I mentioned that's good. This should not be a super dominant strategy. This should be some kind of cheeky win that doesn't happen often, isn't super competitive, and doesn't really dominate the field, right? That's where a card or a combo, whatever you want to call it, like this should be, right? So, yeah, I personally think that this was a good way to go about it. My solution was to delete it from the game, just boop, it's gone. That was going to be my suggestion. I think this basically does that. At least I hope it does. Again, I will certainly update people and see and make sure to keep up to date as to where we all are on that. But yeah, hope to never see you again, Laboratory Maniac. It was fun while it lasted. Speaking of more changes, this is one that I was not expecting, but I was shown. So Tolarian Academy is being completely altered here. It still kind of is retaining its core identity, right? It's still Tolarian Academy as a card, but it's being very different. So first of all, it no longer constantly decreases the cost of your artifacts. It only discards the first artifact. Pretty nice. There's a lot of good 2 and 3 mana artifacts now, and some more expensive ones. And if you just got to slew off multiple in a turn, that would be crazy. That is essentially what the Laboratory Maniac did. It used Wizard Spellbook and the Tome and all of those things, excuse me, and all of those things to chain together some card draw in order to win the game. No longer possible, at least not without spending mana, right? If you did the Jace thing and you made all your artifacts cost 1, only the first one will cost 0. The other ones after that will cost 1 mana. So I think that is a good change to start. And then you still have a random chance to add to get an effect instead of getting a mana gem. That effect is no longer increasing the reduction. It now adds a random artifact to your deck. It's not even card advantage. My thing is why didn't they just add it to your hand? Make it a value card instead of a super acceleration card. Honestly, I would have been really fine with just reducing the cost reduction and just having it be like that. Just add a random artifact to your hand. I don't know why they didn't do that or something like it. Because then it's just still be good. With this, it's so nerfed that I'm not even sure if this is playable anymore. But yeah, let's listen to some of their explanations here. So the lower the cost of multiple artifacts was too powerful. As we thought, there's a lot of good artifacts in the new set, right? That's good. Right, blah, 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 right? No longer scales with the game, right? So no longer increasing that cost reduction as well, right? Even, you're able to play something like a Wizard Spellbook for really cheap if you got a second trigger, and then later on in the game you drew it. Yeah, so, you know how it goes. I think this is almost a too large of a change that I was expecting. I obviously think that Tolarian Academy was really kind of cohesively or what do you call it? making some of the blue decks monochromatic, right? They all are just Layered Academy artifact decks. So kind of making this card a little bit weaker, maybe giving some people some decisions to run some other lands instead of this, probably seems like a good change. I just wish that they had made the effect a little bit better, personally. Right. So the other card that was dominating the game and making the game really, really annoying to play was Gutfire Devil, now being changed to 2 mana, as I expected, but also getting an additional power. But now it can't block. And it also only adds 2 Gutfires to your deck instead of 3. So, as I say, it created a lot of inevitability and frustrating gameplay, right? So if you got your opponent low enough, not only could they not attack you, but now like you had a time limit, and so unless you had flyers, or unless you said some way to do something about the Gutfires, you just died, and you just couldn't do anything about it. Right. So now slowing down the cost and reducing the frequency of their numbers, all great changes, but then also reducing that can't block ability, so that obviously they can still attack you and you don't really want to block them, but now they're not prevented from attacking you. You can actively try and race them instead of just sitting back, unable to attack, waiting to die. Love this change. Relatedly, I found this was a good change and an interesting one. Dance with Devils now triggers at the end of the turn, since triggering on attack would be weird since they can't block, and it's changed to 4 mana to kind of go along with the cost of they increased in cost. They kind of also have to just increase the cost of Dance with Devils as well, otherwise it would be a really good card, right, mana wise. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if this will also still be playable. My guess is probably, but I like my guess is actually probably people no longer build an entire deck around it, but it's possible for decks to discover this and to draft it. Got into a little bit of Hearthstone talk there, and maybe they can do stuff, right. So like Dance with Devils was a cool discover off of some trap generators in Teferi and Ashiok or whatever. So maybe something like that happens, but I'm not sure. All right, we've got another change here to a land here. We've got Ember Spawn's Crags. Now, there's interesting changes here. So, first of all, the Emberling is being changed from 0 mana to 1 mana. I don't think they were particularly crazy, but I do, seems like a fine change if it ever became too dominant, just as kind of a safety measure, because like a lot of times this happens and you're only really playing these if your hand is empty and you don't have other things to do. So yeah. And then the other interesting change here is that they make the mana gem fragile instead of just a normal one. So you don't go up in mana, but you still, or you go up in mana, but you don't, actually get to keep that mana the next time. So if it triggers again, you have the same mana you did last turn, and you can see how it goes. And I really like that change. They mentioned how it's essentially like, the first one is free, and I really, really like that change. I'd be interested to see if they ever implement a change like that again. For particularly the aggressively slanted lands like this. So yeah, I don't think this card was a particular problem, but it, it's good to have some fixes like that. Tasty Morsel used to give +2/+2, now only giving +1/+1, but now it's getting an extra point of power. So kind of on par with the classic 2 powered 1-drops. I guess Vraska decks were abusing this or using it a lot. I also saw it in a little bit of Vivian. Personally, I thought this was fine, but I think it might still be okay. Yeah, I don't know. This change feels kind of crazy. Demonic Priest the card that you got off of Profane Palace, going down from a 3/2 to a 2/2, otherwise remaining the same. They mentioned that you gained a little, little bit too much of life from the Westvale Abbey, and that kind of confused me because we played a couple of decks, or played a deck or two with this land, and it felt really weak. It felt like a lot of times you just kind of died, or you didn't really deploy your priests fast enough, or they just died themselves, and then you didn't gain any life. Like, I didn't really see it being that good, but I guess there are some cases where you just you flip the land really fast, you play a bunch of these, and you just gain a ridiculous amount of life. I guess that's possible. I don't think it's a huge change, but it seems kind of weird given that, again, the card wasn't really doing too much of a dominant effect. All right, other really interesting nerfs here. Alarm Bell being changed from draft to just draw, so just draw a random creature from your deck. This, they say, was the standout card from it, and I from the new set, and I completely agree. Just giving you 3 selections of cheap cards in your deck really early, again, was really, really good with Tolarian Academy. Removing the choice, just giving a random one, so kind of just being a 2-mana draw 2 for 2 cards that cost 2 or less. Seems still good, right? Just not crazy. I really, really like that. All right, and then next up, another card that did things in the Teferi deck, changing the Encore performance from 2 to 3. They state that they want it to be a combo card. This is really cool because I like them seeing that, like knowing that, like, hey, this is a card that we know could be abused or could be really powerful, and so they know kind of which cards can kind of go nuts. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna reduce the mana, even though we've nerfed some of the other aspects of the Laboratory Maniac stuff. Seems good. Spawning Arowana used to be an 03, now being an 02. This was the premium 1-drop, I would say, in the Gideon decks, that would just spam creatures and then attack with Gideon repeatedly. So this seems like a good change. Still nice, kind of putting it more on par with the 04, the 1-mana 04 artifact or colorless card. Right, that kind of makes sense. Splitting it up over 2 bodies, though, so yeah. Then we have Invisibility Cloak, just going up 1 mana. This card can be highly uninteractive, so adjusting the cost to better reflect that. I think this kind of, I don't want to say this kills the card. It's still probably going to see play. It just makes the card a little bit weaker. There's some decks that I was playing this in where I didn't, I think all I played in a turn was this card because I already had a really large creature out. So yeah, this card can probably still do stuff. It just makes it a little bit worse. Speaking of a little bit worse, Thought Provoker here, going down to 2 charges. Said they wanted to produce to provoke thoughts and not rage. This card can do a lot at pretty much all stages of the game. You can activate it and reduce a cheap card and play it early, activate this and make a expensive card cheaper, or a turn earlier, so that you can deploy it ahead of schedule. So yeah, just providing a lot of value for 1 mana. And again, often you played this with Tolarian Academy, so this was a free card, and that just was really powerful. Really surprised to see a card like this that initially you wouldn't think would be so crazy. Again, until you think of a card like Tolarian Academy and just running really efficient cards and card draw. So Hatch Plan, we talked about this earlier, no longer getting the free benefit, only reducing the cost by 2. So now if you have a 3-mana trap that you're wanting to play, you have to play this on turn 5, play this with 5 mana as opposed to 4. So yeah, just getting a little bit weaker, and it's super unfortunate. But yeah, I'm not sure if, again, what this will do. if it'll completely kill the card, or kind of these kind of trap strategies, but we'll see. And then an interesting buff where for Oswald the Fiddlebender, a card that doesn't really see a ton of play, now being changed that when you play a spell, you give all your friendly creatures +++ permanently. It used to only give it for the turn. Excuse me, for the turn. Personally, I agree with this change. I feel like temporary buffs, unless they are large and cheap, should probably be lean towards being more permanent. There's so much that you have to do with this card in order to make it work. It's a 4-mana 4/3 that can just die. So you play it on curve, it dies, it does nothing. You play it on turn 5, and you cast your shield or sword or whatever, and you get one buff that's not that good. So like this card just like is, was pretty weak, and I think it's actually still pretty weak. As funny as it is. So yeah, I agree with this change. I think it makes the card a little better. I just still don't know how playable this is. Reclamation, interesting, getting a change here. I don't really consider this a nerf or a buff or anything, but you just add a base copy of the card to your hand. I don't think that really mattered a whole lot. I guess it mattered for some like zombie creatures that, or for Liliana's Goliath. Right, so that would get a buff if it got back from Reclamation, but otherwise I don't think it really matters, and it just makes it so that if there's some reason that you want a card in your graveyard for an effect like Tarmogoyf, for a reanimation effect, Reclamation will still keep that card there and just add a copy of it to your hand. So I think that's pretty interesting, and yeah. I don't think this makes the card really has any real effect on the playability of the card. I think this card remains mostly the same. All right, and then Kothoped, now all of its effects dealing an additional damage to yourself, and now only providing 3 mana instead of 4 mana. This, I think, is a great change. I think Kothoped felt more like a modal card as opposed to making deals, as they say. But really, the 3 damage felt too short, and the 4 mana was being used a little bit too much, because people could just play as the 6/6 flying and then play a couple of other things and just go off. So yeah, I think this is a good change. I still don't think it dramatically affects the playability of the card. I think the places where you see Kothoped being good will continue to be good. It just, there will be a more noticeable downside. So I like that change a lot. That, I think, is all of the nerfs and buffs and everything. So really interesting stuff. Again, happy to see Laboratory Maniac gone. Happy to see Gutfire Devil get a substantial nerf. Happy to see Extract Fear back. Sad about the trap stuff. Yeah, I think overall nothing here is really dramatically affecting the Planeswalkers and that kind of Planeswalker tier list. Again, besides Jace and Laboratory Maniac, I don't know where those will end up, but I think, again, those are really much nerfed. So otherwise, again, the game should kind of still stay intact or kind of revert to how it was in previously. So that's a good thing, right? So yeah, really, really interesting. So, yeah, last couple of things to go over here. Ball Lightning and Lazav getting some updated templates. So Ball Lightning literally just getting the fleeting keyword as it should. Totally fine. I think that makes a ton of sense. I don't think they'll ever do anything with the fleeting keyword other than this. I mean, maybe they would, but if that does happen in the future, it's good to make this change now. And Lazav getting the disguise keyword. Right. So, sorry, I believe it is getting the template to match these so that you can actually see what it's transformed into or transformed from. So that, I think, is pretty nice. At least I hope so. Now to some gameplay changes. There aren't any bug fixes that I have really looked at here that were super crazy. So we'll just talk about the gameplay changes. I'll take another look at those as well. But yeah, so matchmaking, excuse me. Now the wins are being capped at 15, but the loss looks like at 45 to 15 instead of 50-10. Or sorry, the trophies now. So you will at minimum be awarded 15 instead of 10, and maximum 45 as opposed to 50. Right, so that means you can gain or lose 3 times rather than 5 times. And that's interesting. And then they also say that they're going to make it less sensitive to difference in trophy amounts between players. I'm not really sure what that means, but hopefully it means that we receive more points for a win than a loss, as opposed to barely getting any points, like it seemed to be the case in the last mode of or last matchmaking system. So they also make some improvements to back-end matchmaking. Again, there's nothing we can really know about that. Some stuff at the lower leagues, quicker matches in all the leagues. That's just all good news, right? Nothing bad there. Now, really interesting change in the Moonlight and unspent mana interaction. Now, if you weren't clear, if you aren't up to date on what this is, Moonlight is a mechanic that flips a werewolf creature if you have 2 or more unspent mana at the end of your turn. Now, the thing is that this applied to fragile mana, but it didn't apply to mana if it was reserved for a trap. Right, so you would play a 2-cost, let's say one of the 2-cost werewolves on turn 3. If you held up a trap using 2 or more mana, you would reserve the mana. It would appear that your mana was still unspent, but you would pass the turn, and the mana would show that it is still unspent, but your werewolves would not turn over or transform. So the moment I noticed this was incredibly frustrating, not because I didn't understand how the interaction went, but it showcased to my opponent, hey, I have a trap, right? Because it didn't transform the werewolf, but it shows the mana, and it shows the mana was unspent, right? And they talk about and they talk about how that was intentional in their initial design. Right, in order to prevent players from double spending their mana, but based on the feedback, they reevaluated the stance, did some more testing, and then adjusted it so that now that is the case. Couple of things here. First of all, hello wizards, or hello people at Spellslingers. Good to know that you watch my stream or you watch my content, because I believe I talked about this exclusively, and I definitely posted this in some of the discussion boards and everything on Discord and everything. So that feels good. I definitely feel validated in that opinion. I don't know, like, again, it's perfectly acceptable that they made it one way, and it's nice to see that they are taking that feedback from players, incorporating it, and implementing it in a fairly appropriate manner, right? They acknowledge it, they fix it, and don't really say anything else about it. I think that's really, really nice to see. I don't think this, again, drastically changes the usage of Moonlight cards. I think Moonlight cards will still be good, and obviously now we just get to include traps, maybe flip them a little bit easier, but otherwise I don't think there's anything too crazy that's gonna change about the werewolf cards in the game at the moment. Yeah. So really, really like to see that change, and excited to test and to mess around with that. So they added a Play Angels challenge. Awesome. There's some various bug fixes, stuff that with traps and things like that, stuff with Gideon, fixed various bugs. Don't really see anything crazy. And cannot be played if it was countered. As some of these various fixes, that all didn't matter. Fixed by a corpse crawler to buff a creature instead of debuff them. Very, very odd fixes. So, cool. Nothing too crazy there, but yeah, pretty substantial changes, right? We got a ton of, we got a whole new planeswalker, we got a ton of balance changes, and we got some of these interesting game system changes that I think, again, holistically the game has improved just by that much more. And again, always good to hear from the developers to see that they're paying attention to the game. Awesome. Well, that's really gonna do it for me. I just wanted to get this out there as fast as possible. Some of my content is now archaic because it was recorded obviously before these changes and during the time in which Jace would obviously be very dominant on the ladder. Anyone who's been watching my streams really sees me getting a little annoyed at the lack of good content. So excited to get back to it and see where the spells are slinging, so to speak. All right, that's gonna do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and again, if you did, remember, leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Really helps me out. All right guys, thanks for watching, and I will hope to see you in the next video.